So outside of those like frustration of like logistic side and the flavor side, even everything works perfectly. The coffee you taste at the origin and coffee that arrives to Canada tastes different because there's a time between. Is there any like certain way you predict the flavor changes?
Depends on what country you're working in.
Yeah.
Certain ones you can taste. Like in Ethiopia, it's a little bit easier, I find. Excuse me, because the coffees have a particular flavor when they're fresh, and they generally have a long period of time to open up. We call it open up before the flavors really start to show themselves. So once you know what that flavor tastes like, you can predict which ones may do better with some floating time and warehouse time than ones that don't. So that's a trick at origin. If it's tasting spectacular, like super, like something you want to drink that afternoon, it's probably not a coffee you want to buy unless you're taking it home with you, because 4 months it might not taste like that.
Yeah.
That's how you learn through experience. So, I first starting out, I used to ask a lot of questions, and you're always cupping with people. A lot of them are international buyers or other people that you meet. You run into people in your hotel lobby or whatever, asking tons of questions about how they do it. Working with good people, partners on the ground that can direct you and help you, that helps a ton too. But yeah, certain other countries, that's probably the best it's going to taste that day, but it still might be worth the risk, especially if it's someone that you're working with. I don't want to ever leave coffees behind that we've been buying for year after year, because the farmers are in a vulnerable situation financially, and I don't want to be the cause them to be more vulnerable than they already are. So it's my responsibility to take the coffees and try and find a home for them. But it can be tricky for sure.
Yeah, and I remember I did only like 2 origin trips so far, and when I first went to the Guatemala, that was my the Guatemala trip was my first trip, and the first cupping was very strange for me because when I tasted the first cup, I thought this cup is just different than what I used to taste.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go through all the cups on the table, and like all the coffee has this similar nuance in the cup that in my head, it's just kind of like greenish or like freshness.
Yeah.
In terms of like sensation and like taste. Is that kind of common thing in very freshly cooked coffee?
And depending on the country, they always have a flavor to indicate freshness. Depends on where you are. It's hard to describe in each country, but they all have a particular flavor, I think. But not always, though. So not always. But yeah, you try and you can't confuse that with the coffee maybe not scoring as high, because sometimes they can be very close. So you just have to practice your tasting a lot. So to be a good buyer, and I say a good seller too, you have to practice your tasting constantly and be very confident in your skills, and be able to be flexible so that you can go into a lab with protocols you're not used to and be able to taste the coffees and be objective about it.
What kind of protocol do you have for pre-imported, if it's not a secret?
Buy good coffees. That's a trick.
Yeah.
It's not always as easy to just pick the good ones, but kind of sometimes it is. Less is more sometimes. So if there's good coffee at the table, you should buy it. Probably that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
But it just depends on what you're trying to do. Like when I start a new origin, we open up a new place we're going to. What are you trying to accomplish here? Are we buying? What do your customers want? Do they want blenders? Do they want super high scoring wash coffees? Do they want fermentation experiments? Like have a very clear idea of what you're trying to achieve with your program, and then partner with people on the ground that can point you in the right direction to those types of coffees that you need. Find a good a lab that you're comfortable with, that you want to work with, and someone who's willing to work with you over time and respond to feedback also, because not everything's perfect. So you want to have people that are flexible and can help you out with that respect. But yeah, it comes with experience and practice.
And I think the green importer position can like, kind of, I think the great important position is easier to monitoring how the coffee consumption trend is changing, because your business, you have business related with many different roasters. Like some are more producing the comfort coffee, and some are really focused on experimental or like experimental processed coffee. There are lots of different demands in the roaster, but you can see all those trends moving. So in your head, how is the coffee consumption trend is been changing since next 5 years to?
Yeah, I think, well, the easy one to say is processing, but I
Yeah.
think even more so than that, it's like just specialty coffee. I think when you're only drinking specialty coffee, only talking to specialty coffee roasters, you kind of forget that the majority of the industry is not that. It's regular coffee. So the growth in the specialty side it's been huge, first of all, but I think there's a ton more room for growth still. But yeah, when I was first starting, like, to get a single farm coffee from Colombia was not all that common. To get separated varietals, so for even people that started to understand what varietals are and the difference, that was what people were talking about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's like gotten to the point where some farms are just air freighting coffees, like they backpack at the farm and they're air freighting to small roasters, and they're roasting and serving it to you like a micro roasting style, which is exciting to see. It shows you the growth. But yeah, the easy one to say is processing, especially in Colombia. There's been tons of experimental stuff happening in that country in the last year, the last 2 years, which is really cool to see. But yeah, just the growth overall, people drinking specialty coffee. When I was roasting in the 90s, I would say, oh, this coffee's from Sumatra. No one knew what Sumatra was. Oh, this is a Kenyan double A. You know what that is. Or a Kenyan pea berry, that was exotic, right? We had no information. So getting to know more specifics about the coffee. The farm was the first thing, the region, and then onto varietals, and then now it's with processing and how those affect flavor. That's what I've seen most change. But again, we're a small company. We deal with a certain segment of roasters, so it's hard for me to say across the whole industry. But that's what I would say.
Yeah. As a company owner, you need to meet customers' demands, but you just coffee drinker. As a coffee drinker, what kind of coffee do you often drink, or what's your kind of favorite flavors do you drink?
Well, anyone who knows me, I'm a passionate coffee drinker first and foremost. I like to provide the company staff with passionate coffee drinkers. It's kind of a requirement. A lot of people you meet in the industry, they're passionate about something about coffee, but not drinking coffee. So for me, I could be working any job and I'd still have the same passion. I still get excited to make coffee in the morning, every morning of my life. So for me, it's changed a lot too, because I used to really just enjoy washed coffees. So whatever was washed was what I preferred to drink. But I mean, my palate's changed a lot. I'm really open to the funky, interesting coffees, and to me, it's more about like the people they're producing, what they're trying to achieve with it, and just trying different things. But I don't drink the same thing over and over again. I like a variety. So right now, I mean, all summer we've been drinking Kenyan coffees like crazy. It's been a good season. It's been so hot in Calgary here. So we've been drinking tons of Kenyans, but I'm really excited now. We have some Ethiopians finally in. So I try and drink what's in season, I guess, and a wide range of stuff. If I answered that question.
Yeah, flavor-wise.
I guess I could talk about my favorite flavors maybe in coffee. For me, I really love citrus fruits. That's my favorite type of fruit. So for me, citrus is always the number one thing that I like. And I like to drink coffee first thing in the morning. I'm not sometimes, but not very often, am I an evening coffee drinker. So for me, I like those bright. My favorite profile overall would be like the bright tea, citrus, juicy, complex coffees with lots of brightness, lots of acidity. That's probably my preferred profile. If I had to pick one the rest of my life to drink, that's what I would choose.
is your preference on the coffee flavor is like kind of similar to the cocktail or wine, cider, the other beverage? Are those like kind of similar or?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm not a huge drinker, but I do like cocktails and wine, and I like acidity-driven, lighter wines as well. Because to me, like wine is juice, so it should taste juicy. And coffee is is a fruit, right? So it should have fruit characteristics to me, to my palate.
Yeah.
It should be juice, like fruit based with other things on top of it. I'm not a huge fan of like the super heavy, say red wines. Like they look like inky black ones. It's not really my favorite. It's the same with coffee too. So yeah, I would say yeah. Like a Scotch, for example, I'm not a huge aficionado of Scotch. It just overwhelms my palate. I haven't gotten into it. So maybe that, this is not really citrusy and juicy like I like.
Yeah, it's more like you need to. I think Scotch is more similar to like espresso tasting. Yeah, because you need to get used to that level of strength.
Yeah.
And then once you get used to it, and then you can find the flavors, like differences, and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's like espresso too. It overwhelms your palate, especially most people drink pour espresso when they first start drinking it.
And they have mindset of espresso, bitter, too strong. They just
sugar.
Immediately sugar out.
Yeah.
Not even like trying it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're really well prepared espresso. If you started with like a really fancy Scotch, it'd probably be a lot easier than starting with the crappy stuff.
Yeah. And then you just spend your money too.
Yeah, it's big time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think subconsciously, I obviously have things that it's a hard question sometimes because human beings, we do things without thinking. So, I guess that's what I would reach for first. It's light, juicy, bright.
Yeah. And you drink filtered brew coffee more than espresso, is it?
I used to be a huge espresso freak.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, when I first started as a barista, the cafe I worked at was all French press coffee, which was unique at the time. But I didn't drink coffee when I started working there, so I was 16 when I started. Yeah. So espresso was what I got into, and I became a huge espresso nerd. Then David Schulmer book came out, and to me that was like the ultimate pinnacle of coffee was espresso. I had a machine at home. We used to make it, really nerd out on it. And then over time, we just I wanted espresso is a great thing, but it's a short experience. Sometimes you like to sit and read a book. The espresso is finished too fast. So, and making it, I have a lever machine at home. It's you have to kind of modulate the temperature manually, so it can be tricky. And sometimes you're getting weird shots, and it just became too long. So you're trying to make coffee. It takes you an hour, and then slam it. Okay, now you're ready for another one, and you start the whole process again. So I still love espresso, but I don't really as much as I used to.
Yeah. Espresso is definitely a unique beverage, and I feel like only small amount of people, even in the coffee industry, likes espresso or filter.
Or especially, we're lucky in our specialty industry because we get such good coffees, which makes such fantastic filtered coffees.
Yeah.
And also, I think too, the roasting of espresso is really challenging to do it well, and brewing espresso is super challenging. So it's really hard to do consistently. Yeah. So even you go to your favorite shop and it might not be as good as it was yesterday. So filters usually a little more forgiving.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely, that's a huge challenge. I was kind of forgot about those things. Like roasting processes are also required, and good brewing for espresso actually make a huge impact on the beverage side. Yeah.
And also, this is like primary research for us. So a lot of my clients know that I like to buy their coffees and taste because I want to support them, but also it helps me to see what they get excited about. What are the notes they put on the bag? What do I taste? What types of coffees do they like to stock? I'm constantly looking at that stuff because that's the only really way we can predict what the market will want, which is a big challenge for someone doing the type of work that we do. Yeah. So I constantly taste, and then when people get really excited about something, taste it. Do you taste the same thing? What do you taste? And it helps me to choose coffees for them again, or suggest coffees anyway.
Yeah. Do you normally ship out green coffee sample to roasters or roasted coffee samples to?
When I first started, it was only green. And then I met someone on the trail one time, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we got this roaster called Akawa, and so now we're doing a lot of roasted samples for people." And I think I'd seen the Tim Wendelbo endorsement about Akawa since like 2017 maybe. So then I was like, okay, well I should get an Akawa. So I bought one, and then I started offering to do roasted samples for people, and then it's been growing constantly. And we're probably 50-50 now, green and roasted.
Oh really?
If not 60-40 roasted to green. A lot of roasters are really busy, and we're still working with their small family operations or mom and pop style shops, so they're wearing a lot of hats. A lot of them just don't have time to sample roast, which I totally get. And a lot of them are trusted. They're very trusting of our profiles, and they know we roast the coffees a lot. So whatever way we think is going to taste the best, they're happy to support that and let us do it. So yeah, we do a ton of roasted samples, which is cool.
Yeah. So you mainly roast all the samples in Akawa. So do you normally our customers? So as a roaster, it is always hard to make a relation between the sample roasting profile to the production roasting profile. I almost thinking those are two separate, completely different process, and I'm not trying to implement what I did on sample to the roasting process. Many coffee roasters ask you about your sample roasting profile when they like your coffee.
Yeah, lots. We deal with a lot of people that are just starting out. Specialty's grown so much too, so we deal with a ton of people that are just starting out, which is awesome. I love to have those conversations. But yeah, it's a challenge. So Akawa is not the most what's the word for it? It's not the most translatable to like a drum roaster style machine. So it can be challenging, but it's all about learning how to taste and what's possible with the coffee and how does that translate.